Good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are located. Welcome to the webinar, what the AI for All strategy means for young people in Canada. Feel free to add a message in the chat to tell us where you're joining from today. My name is Sylvain Côté. I'm located in Chelsea, Quebec. I'm the Director of Research and Policy at the Information and Communication Technology Council, or also called ICTC. Before presenting our moderator and panelists, let me take off some technical instructions and guidelines. We're testing Zoom AI-generated translated captioning feature, so please bear with us as we test this new tool. This webinar is presented in English with AI-generated translated captions. To enable the translated captions, click More at the bottom of your screen on the three dots in the bottom toolbar. Then click Show Captions. Then click the up arrow in the top right corner of the Show Captions icon and toggle translation to on. Set your speaking language and then set your caption language. These step-by-step instructions are also posted in the chat in the English and French. This webinar is live and meant to be interactive, so we encourage you to use the Q&A feature to submit questions to the panel. We also have a live chat. To ensure the discussion is a great experience for everyone, please keep message positive and constructive. After all, we're all here to learn and contribute to the conversation. Please stay on topic and share thoughts and questions related to today's sessions, and importantly, be respectful. When the webinar ends, there will be a short survey for you to submit additional feedback. The session is being recorded, and we will share the presentations in follow-up. Importantly, before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the land in which we live and work. We are living on Turtle Island, the land colonized as North America. This land is shared by dozens of First Nations tribes who have been here for time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge the Métis and Inuit people as well, and ask that we move forward together, acknowledging the truth of the past and repairing those relationships in order to walk side by side into the future. Today, gathered in this digital space, we invite you to take a moment to reflect on the traditional, ancestral, unceded Inuit, Métis, and First Nation territories in which you are settled. About ICTC, if you're not familiar with our work, ICTC is a neutral, not-for-profit national center of expertise with the mission of strengthening Canada's digital advantage in the global economy. Over 30 years, our goal has been to ensure that technology is utilized to drive economic growth and innovation, along with helping Canada's workforce remain competitive on a global scale. So you all heard about AI. AI is at the forefront of our preoccupation, and young people stand at the epicenter of this rapid evolution. While AI disrupts traditional learning and career path, this technological shift could also unlock unprecedented opportunities. Young Canadians are uniquely positioned to spearhead this transition. Recently, ICTC responded to the federal government newly launched AI for All strategy, which was released 2 weeks ago. Our response, we provided a response, and that response outlines a practical implementation roadmap designed to scale SME adoption, expand national AI literacy, and build risk-based governance framework. Beyond this roadmap, ICTC has published several policy briefs to help Canadians navigate the impact of AI on business governance and the labor market. We invite you to explore our website to read these briefs and learn more about the topic, but also about our work. On this critical issue, we are deeply honored to showcase the unique insights and perspectives of Canada's next generations of innovators. The moderator and the panelists in today's discussions are part of the ICTC inaugural cohort of Digital Youth Ambassadors. During this session, we will hear directly from them how they feel about these changes and how they also, importantly, are missing them. These young leaders form a national youth-led advisory council designed to bring youth perspective into Canada's digital workforce, research, and policy conversation. We launched this initiative to help ensure young Canadians have a direct role in national conversations about building a more competitive, inclusive, and future-ready digital workforce. So we're very much looking forward to hear from them. To kick off the panel, I'm pleased to introduce the moderator for today's discussion. Julian Lam is a GD candidate at the Peter Howard School of Law at UBC. His work sits at the intersection of law, technology, and public policy with a focus on AI governance, venture, and international trade. He's a youth fellow with the Center of Media, Technology, and Democracy, where he has contributed to national and global initiatives on AI governance. He is also a Digital Policy Hub Fellow at the Center for International Governance Innovation. Over to you, Julian.
Thanks so much, Sylvain. To start us off, I'd love to situate today's discussion around what Canada's AI strategy or for all strategy means for young Canadians, not just as future workers, but as students, users, builders, and people who live with the long-term implications of AI. It has been something that we've been discussing during our sessions with other youth ambassadors to discuss what the future looks like when AI is implicated in our work, is potentially replacing jobs, and is something we have to grapple with when, entering the workforce. So first, I'll begin with the panelists introducing themselves, briefly outlining their experience with AI and their overall impression of how the AI for all strategy relates to young Canadians. So first, I'm going to hand it over to Raneem to get us started.
Thanks so much, Julian. Hi, everyone. My name's Raneem Zaytoun, and I'm one of the ICTC's Digital Youth Representatives. I work in digital policy and AI governance, and I've been fortunate enough to engage in some international policy spaces over the past few years, including at the ITU, the IGF, the WSIS, and the Global Digital Compact. I'm also an X36 fellow, so I tend to think about these questions from both a policy and a builder perspective. To start off, it's worth discussing what in the strategy I genuinely found strong. This is much more cohesive and ambitious than anything that Canada has previously released on AI adoption. The choice to position Canada as an AI skills nation is smart because it makes it clear that AI adoption is not only a matter of technology, but also of workforce and equity as well. There's much needed attention given to SME adoption and at least an acknowledgement of the gap and the necessity to close it. However, stopping there would deprive the conversation of its value. So I think it's important to also highlight the strategy against the backdrop of what happened before it was released as well. So there were several bills that did not pass. The Artificial Intelligence and Data Act did not pass. Canada entered 2026 without domestic AI legislation, without an independent AI regulator, and some enforceable standards of how it can be used around hiring, crisis, healthcare, and public services. In that context, strategy is great because it's encouraging Canadians to embrace AI, build new skills, and adopt it in their businesses, and those are worthwhile goals. However, I will also advocate for some governance infrastructure to ensure that adoption is still being developed. And that is not a reason to dismiss the strategy, but it's a reason to be clear about what we're looking at. So we have a vision, and this vision is valuable, and hopefully we can start working towards governance frameworks for young Canadians whose lives will be shaped around the decisions being made right now. Understanding that it feels important, and it's also worth noting the strategy's relationship to young Canadians. We are positioned as primary beneficiaries, and we will be the first generation to benefit from an AI-enabled economy. And that, however, there is still a framing that youth and the talent pool still needs to be developed for Canada's global competitiveness. And I do believe that with the overall strategy and with more assured governance, we can work towards a more prosperous Canada. Thank you.
Great. I'm gonna hand it over to Deba now.
Thanks, everyone. Hi, my name is Diba Alam. I'm very excited to provide a little bit more of a post-secondary and technical perspective on this reflective panel. Just about myself, I'm entering my final year of machine intelligence or AI engineering at the University of Toronto with a minor in robotics. So, because of this really unique degree, I've taken a wide variety of courses and field work relating to the actual fundamentals of AI. This could be ranging from neural networks all the way to mathematical optimization, reasoning, and computer vision. So, a very wide variety. For myself, my specific focus is on autonomous robotics. I'm currently finishing an internship supporting that development of robotic arms for lunar space operations. But in addition to that, I've also published official research on the safe deployment of autonomous AI and how we start to build public trust when we incorporate AI into these industries. So, as a student who has clearly had that firsthand experience learning about these AI tools and searching for digital opportunities myself, I felt really optimistic about how the AI for All strategy supports young Canadians. Specifically, what caught my eye was that increased accessibility to AI tools, as well as work opportunities for youth in all different communities, particularly by expanding the work integrated learning program or other opportunities for youth. And of course, that is a really large component of what us as digital youth ambassadors discuss during our conversations and advisory roles. That, in combination with providing broader access to all for digital skills training, this strategy is really focusing on making sure that youth are not just passive users who are thrust into a new world of AI. Instead, they're helping us level the playing field. They're helping us build confidence in the work that we're doing and position our generation to be the ones, as Raneem said, driving that responsible AI adoption in the workforce. And ultimately, keeping this momentum behind Canadian businesses and sovereign innovation, it gives us young, talented folks real incentive to build our careers right here at home. And when you pair that retention with the access to AI learning that we've discussed, you're really encouraging youth to look directly at the problems in their own communities back here in Canada and solve them using AI. And I really believe that that will allow us to drive local innovation to a whole new level of creativity. So I can't wait to see how this implementation of the strategy will lead to great success for Canada.
Thanks so much, Diva. And we'll flip it over to you, Ismail.
So, thanks, Julian. My name is Ismail Chagbile. I am based in New Brunswick. I am a founder. I have built AI solutions for simulation centers, for air ambulances, for education, and even for small and medium businesses. One of my startup has been recognized as one of the top 100 AI startup in Canada. I am also an author. I wrote a book on AI and automation. So, my perspective on the AI for all strategy is optimist, also like Diba and Ranin said. But I think that it goes a little bit more than just the optimism. It is going to empower us as young Canadian not to just be a better users of AI, but to be also builders. When we see, for example, the pillar number 3 that is around the sovereignty of AI, it is going to give us an edge to control where our models are going to be running and also where our data are going to be living, which is crucial. And I think it is going to give us an edge to lead the next wave of innovation.
Amazing and really great points from everyone and really diverse perspectives. And kind of moving on to the next question, I really want to focus on the strategy's idea of Canada becoming increasingly focused on AI skilling or AI skills, kind of this new sort of buzzword term the government is beginning to use, and what that actually means in practice for young people and their future careers. So the AI for All strategy calls for Canada to become an AI skills nation, where AI creates jobs and all Canadians have access to AI training. What does this mean, though, for the opportunities of young people in their academic, personal, and professional lives? So really excited to hear your diverse perspectives, and I'd love for Neem to kick us off here on that question.
Thanks, Julian. As I think about an AI skills nation and its relevance for young Canadians, I prefer to look at this from a few different perspectives. From an academic perspective, the framing creates both an opportunity and a timing challenge. Traditional university programs typically have longer cycles, and AI is evolving faster than that. At the moment, there is a gap where young people are learning AI literacy through self-study while curricula catch up, but this is not always a negative thing because it demonstrates responsibility, adaptability, and resilience of young Canadians. Non-degree options, micro-credentials, AI-oriented work integrated learning placements, and applied learning experiences can adjust to fast changes in ways a lot of these traditional programs cannot. The strategy creates an opening to fund and formalize these alternative pathways in a way that actually reaches the students where they are. And the opportunity here is not just to learn AI tools, but to become critical thinkers who can evaluate these systems and ask good questions about their usage within a given context. The most valuable thing a student can leave post-secondary with is not just proficiency in a specific application, but those will change. So it's the ability to evaluate, question, and understand limitations. From a personal perspective, AI is already integrated into the lives of most young Canadians, often in ways they don't recognize. It's behind your social media feeds, search results, customer service indications, and even in some hiring processes. So AI literacy is already personally relevant for young people, regardless of their future profession. What the strategy can do is help young Canadians become not only users of these systems, but also informed participants who understand what AI can do and when it is being used in their lives and decision making, and who feel confident enough to question it when something does not seem right. So that kind of literacy is necessary regardless of what field someone goes into. There's also an equity dimension to this. The opportunity that the strategy describes exists, but it's not equally accessible for all young people. Students with financial difficulties, family responsibilities, or gaps in foundational digital skills will need additional support to access something like AI literacy and AI skills building. The strategy declares a commitment to inclusiveness, and implementation is where that gets tested more specifically. From a professional perspective, this is where the opportunity is the most concrete and the most immediate. So young Canadians entering the job market today are well positioned to address this rising demand for people who can work alongside these technologies, assess them, and implement AI responsibly. And if young people combine that AI literacy with business judgment and communication skills, it can meaningfully increase their chances of success in the labor market. The nuance worth adding here is that not all these industries and professions will experience the same rate of change. In that regard, it would be most useful for young Canadians to stay curious about how AI is affecting their specific field rather than treating it as something that applies equally to everyone, everywhere.
Thanks so much, Raneem, and really great points on sort of that curiosity piece and how things are constantly changing for young people. I'd like to flip it over now to Diba if she has any responses to Raneem or sort of to the question in general. And I'd also like to remind participants, if you have any questions or things you're kind of, if you have any burning things you're wondering about, feel free to submit questions to the Q&A function as well. But over to you, Diba. Any thoughts?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, Raneem, incredible insights. You touched on so many important pieces of discussion. So I'll try and see if I can consolidate any of that knowledge and bring in my experience as well. But first and foremost, as you mentioned, I think academically, it does mean that Canada becoming an AI skills nation essentially makes it easier for everybody to be on an equal playing field, right? So in my experience, perhaps you're in engineering or computer science, and those fields will tend to have an advantage. This is commonplace, of course. AI is a digital tool related to technology. So folks who are accustomed to learning at that fast pace and being in that environment will have a bit of a leg up in all these AI roles that are entering the digital workforce. But by making these tools accessible to everyone across not just different disciplines, but also levels of education, their location within Canada as well, that might not have access to giant tech hubs in major cities. Now, all these students can have the same leverage and they can be equipped to enter at an even level. But another great thing is that because AI is becoming more and more commonplace and integrated everywhere, it's somehow shifting the focus away from are you able to code and do you have that technical foundation to more so what is that unique perspective you are bringing to the table because of whatever else you're studying or your experiences, your upbringing, your background. And it encourages, especially students, but also young professionals to find the value that they bring within the intersection between what they're passionate about and their studies. So I think that's already an incredible shift that is allowing people to express themselves more freely through AI. And as Raneem said, it's really important to embrace AI just as a tool and an opportunity for us to grow our own ideas so that we still make sure that humans are the focus of this changing digital economy. And professionally, that's another point that we wanted to touch on. I really see this as the biggest opportunity for the next generation. The strategy itself mentions that they want to create up to 90,000 AI-related job opportunities, and half of those being specifically for student work placements or youth programs. That is an incredible shift. As an engineering student who's currently on my own co-op placement, I can tell you firsthand that that first break is essential. It really helps you get your foot in the door and making sure that we have AI placements available for students to employ the skills that they're learning, make sure that they can adapt really easily to a full-time role afterwards. So giving them the opportunity to deploy AI outside of school into a real-world environment is how you build that career confidence. So this will really help train youth to become better integrated into the new talent profile. One last thing that I'd like to touch on is something I really respected about the strategy that they've accepted that perhaps maybe there are studies on this or maybe they're observing it, potential disruptions that an AI-focused economy can bring to certain sectors. One thing that they noted was female-dominated sectors. I come from a field where we're constantly fighting against that gender disparity, so I'm really glad to see that the strategy acknowledged it in advance and is already aiming to upskill folks in perhaps more vulnerable sectors so that they can have these skills ahead of time and align to where these roles and opportunities are coming from. They specifically mentioned backing the existing women's program, so that alongside youth, because of course we want to target young girls who are coming out of school and encourage them to pursue these pathways so that they can transition into full time. I really found that that was exactly the kind of foresight we needed to support equitable access to AI in Canada.
Really awesome points, Diva and Raneem. And I think, specifically on how do young people prepare themselves for the workforce or for something that's completely sort of new terrain when it comes to, traditional work preparation is something that is top of mind and offers, a really great segue into sort of the next question around preparation. This is something that we as digital ambassadors have been really thinking about, how can universities better prepare students for, a digitally enabled or an AI enabled workforce? Potentially, how do we deal with young people and their angst about, often hearing that the economy and job force is made really difficult because AI is sort of disrupting, entry level jobs. So I'd love to hear some kind of answers and thoughts around that. So looking to the future, it is critical that digital adoption of AI be successful to ensure Canada's ability to compete in global markets. How can people currently pursuing post-secondary education or who are just entering the workforce for the first time prepare and position themselves effectively for this talent ecosystem? So kind of turning it back to you, Deba, relating to some of your last answers, would love to hear kind of if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great question and one that I'm very eager to answer because I myself started post-secondary right when the AI boom was happening, and I made the conscious decision to pick a major in AI because I saw where the economy was going and the adoption of AI in the digital workforce. So well equipped to answer this. And quite honestly, the advice that I often share with a lot of my peers is that preparing for an AI-based economy means shifting your mindset from strictly being a user to now becoming a translator. And Raneem also touched on this earlier that we are the ones who need to know how to bridge the gap between either you're using or you're designing AI tools with what actually the industry needs. So first, foremost, of course, for those who are still in school, I really do think it is a great idea to either encourage students, if there are any folks here in educational capacities, to use that time in post-secondary to experiment. Maybe it's not strictly in AI, maybe it's in a related digital field, but this could be taking any electives that are offered, maybe even having more of those options available at institutions that encourage that students use AI for development. And of course, for those who are already in the workforce, there are a lot of great companies who can be offering more certifications, providing opportunities for their staff to go out and do this as well as they're entering the workforce to help them upskill. But aside from getting that technical foundation, which I do believe is important, I think youth are already really well equipped to start building their own personal projects and use this opportunity of AI resurfacing to directly look at problems in a community or industry they're very passionate about. So for me, that was about the cross-disciplinary skills that AI has with robotics, which is one of the priority sectors that we have listed in the AI for All strategy. And at its core, a lot of the incoming roles that are going to be distributed related to AI will likely be just that. There are going to be a lot of roles where the focus is on using AI to solve a common issue, whether it to be optimized, streamlined, or just figure out patterns in data, etc. So students who are already thinking with that mindset ahead of time and trying things out for themselves will be really well positioned to join the talent ecosystem and have the critical thinking and adaptability skills that are going to be needed for business needs. Um, yeah, and again, adaptability. Renee made a great point about that earlier. We're going to keep circling back to it of AI is a tool, but we need students to be adaptable. Technology is continuously evolving. AI itself has changed so much over the past few years, and we project that changing again. So we need students to be prepared by also being willing to upskill and pivot and adapt to whatever AI phenomenon happens next.
Really great points, Diva. And now I kind of want to punt it over to you, Ismail. Just given your background in sort of entrepreneurship and almost kind of creating the jobs or creating, things for yourselves, would be curious to hear more about, somebody who's taken that on, more the entrepreneurial route when it comes to AI.
So I think that I got that question a lot, even from students when we do kind of some presentation. Like, I think the question is not what should I do when I graduate? The question should be what problem should I solve before I graduate? Because the reason why I'm saying this is, yes, AI is evolving, but AI still have a lot of challenges, right? For example, in my case, we have lots of challenges with AI. One thing is the latency with AI models, right? For example, a student can try to solve just the problem related to the latency. We have issues with AI like the explainability of AI, right? Because even until now, AI is still kind of a black box, right? So I think young people should maybe think about using a backward approach, try to take one particular problem that they want to solve in AI or one particular problem that they want to solve with AI. And then during the study, they can consult their teachers, they can consult even mentors, they can even consult some co-founder or maybe friend and ask them, oh, I'm trying to solve this. What is your perspective about it? And then when they graduate, they will not only just graduate with just a certificate. They will graduate with a certificate and a problem. And when a student have a problem like that, and for example, me, I'm currently solving problem related to the latency with our models. Someone shows up with say, oh, during my study, I work on reducing the latency by 10 milliseconds. Great. When can you start? I think that will be kind of the way that I think young Canadians should think about pursuing post-secondary studies, right? Get the problem, solve it, and then when you graduate, you have a problem and you have your certificate. That's going to attract even businesses through you instead of you trying to apply directly to job. That's kind of what I think about it.
Amazing perspectives from both of you, and I think our participants really value a lot of that. And I think a lot of our discussions have been sort of like there's not necessarily a one size fits all
Yeah.
solution, but there are so many different perspectives about, ways in which young people can find meaningful work, meaningful jobs, and add value, whether it's in a workforce, to solving a problem, as you mentioned, Ismail, to, starting their own endeavors and adventures when it comes to AI. So I guess kind of shifting, a little bit, the strategy also places a lot of emphasis on helping SMEs adopt AI. I want to explore the role sort of young Canadians can play here, both in supporting existing businesses and in building new ventures themselves, as I previously mentioned. I think it's quite well known that a lot of Canada's economy is propped up by the SMEs, and there is kind of a gap between AI adoption and how these companies continue to exist. Could young people be the solution, and be the architects for implementing that? So I'd love to hear sort of what can young Canadians do to help SMEs with AI adoption or as entrepreneurs themselves. I'd love for Ismail to lead on that question a little bit more, and yeah, would love to hear from you.
So I think first, the statistic is saying that 78% of non-adopting companies report that they don't see how AI benefit their good and services that they provide. And the report say that it is a translation problem. Yes, it is a translation problem, but I think it is also a big opportunity for us as young Canadians. Yes, we can be the bridge between the risk for businesses and also the opportunities that AI could provide to businesses. So I will give you an example. When we started building our startup for simulation centers, what we did is that every week we will go to simulation centers, we will present them a prototype. We will ask them questions about their challenges. We will ask questions about their problems. We will ask them questions about things that are taking most of their time. And then every week we will be iterating, building prototypes, showing them, and then asking them questions every time. And then we will show the prototype to a simulation technologist and ask him, okay, last week you said that this was the problems, right? We try to solve it like this, at least it will save you this time. Do you think we are going in the right direction or in the right direction, or do you think we should pivot, right? And then we did that back and forth until we finally get a solution that was valuable for them. And then we started talking about contract, right? Because when you have the solution, then the question is not anymore about the adoption. Then the question shifts totally to, okay, how can we scale it? Even last week, I have one of our clients that we built kind of some AI features to kind of help with her PL sessions. I just call her just to see, oh, what happens after this session? Did you see some value or something? And she told me, like, it saved her at least 2 weeks of work. So if we provide values, or if we save at least 2 weeks of work for businesses, right? I think that it is going to help also our economy. So the way that we as young people, we can help with that problem related to the adoption will be to take the risk, try to solve the problem we, without asking any money from the businesses, solve the problem. And then when we solve the problem, show it to them and get the feedback on it and then build it. If it shows really the value, I think businesses are going to follow. And then the question will not be anymore about the adoption. It will be more like how can we scale it? And then us also as the solution provider, then that solution become now a new venture that you can use to sell the same solution to others organizations in that same industry. That's kind of the way that I think that we as young Canadians, we could help with the AI adoption in Canada.
Awesome. And I'd love to punt it over to Reneem. Any thoughts?
Yeah, thanks so much, Julian. So, translation is the most useful contribution that young Canadians can make for small businesses beyond the average technical skills. So, while few small firms are thinking about how to implement AI in practice, many are still trying to figure out the fundamental things. So whether it's really worth it, whether it will make mistakes, and how to explain their use of it to its customers. So young Canadians who understand both what these technologies have to offer and also what their limits are can add real value. Simply by having some kind of honest conversation with a business owner, maybe also understanding where their pain points are, that kind of grounded or practical guidance is usually what a small business needs before it makes a decision it cannot easily reverse. To Ismail's point, there's also this trust factor. So a small business owner is often more likely to listen and respond, to, let's say, a work and learning student that they can have a direct conversation with than to report to a large consulting engagement. So there's something about proximity and accessibility that changes how that advice lands. And young Canadians are not coming in with a predetermined understanding of how these solutions are or how they are to sell. They're coming in with curiosity and a genuine understanding of how these tools actually work in practice. Entrepreneurship also offers another opportunity, and the businesses that will stand the test of time will be the ones who are built responsibly and thoughtfully rather than just, building to scale quite quickly. Understanding not only what AI can do, but also the responsibilities that come by using it around data, transparency, and what happens when something goes wrong will matter more as customers and partners develop their own expectations and requirements of AI. The regulatory environment is also continuing to evolve, and entrepreneurs who are already thinking about governance and accountability will also find themselves ahead of that curve, rather than scrambling to catch up when things go wrong. And so, young entrepreneurs asking these questions early will really have an advantage when it comes to working with larger partners, institutional clients, who will be asking them these questions soon enough.
Amazing. Really great points, both of you. Um, Kind of moving into sort of our last question before going into the Q&A, I sort of want to zoom out and look ahead. As this strategy rolls out, what are the biggest sort of changes young people are likely to feel in the short term is something that we're asking here amongst the digital ambassadors, and thinking about, what are really the main pertinent issues that are affecting, young people when it comes to addressing AI, for the long term. So I'd love to hear from each of you um, what you think um, we will see as the sort of biggest changes in the short and or long term for young Canadians when it comes to AI. I'd love to hear some, specific answers around what you personally feel are the biggest, changes or challenges with this disruptive technology. So I think maybe we'll go to Diba first, and then we'll circle through.
Awesome, thanks. There are, of course, a lot of different short, long-term benefits, but also challenges, so it's hard to pick just one or two. I'll try to keep it brief, but I think in the short term, just based on my own experiences, there has already been a massive shift just in the youth mindset regarding employability, which we've touched upon. I'm already seeing it in my own community and for myself that students are proactively seeking out extra opportunities to get involved with the AI space, whether it be certificates, even fellowships, mentorship from folks who are working in the industry already, regardless of what their core studies are, just because of how AI is proliferating throughout all the sectors. And because of that, I do see a short-term benefit because of the strategies planned to distribute these tools equitably and improve AI literacy across all ages, not just those in post-secondary, but those coming up from younger generations as well. But it also completely changes job hunting for youth in several ways. I'm sure we can dive into that a lot deeper, but one manifestation of this change that I've already seen in practice is that job descriptions are shifting overnight to include AI proficiency first and foremost. You can't necessarily just put keywords on a resume anymore. You need to demonstrate your actual knowledge and usage of the tools. That carries a lot more weight than completing a course on its own. So I definitely see that there's going to be a trend in the near future where youth will have to focus on curating portfolios and demonstrating their work through projects or extracurriculars to demonstrate how they deploy those tools, which in the long run is beneficial for them as well because that means they're learning how to effectively and responsibly use AI in their daily lives. But in the long term, I think it'll be really fascinating to see how our generation will progress alongside the development of AI and technology in general. Of course, there's that massive long-term impact of AI safety in governments that still needs to be developed in Canada and globally. But specifically for us as youth, because a lot of us are launching our careers with this new age of technology, we're essentially the perfect group that will be able to take our experiences and shape policies based on what we are noticing in our communities and how we have been affected by it. And I know that the AI for All strategy has already enumerated many, many great ways that Canada will ensure that our AI infrastructure is really robust, but with the rapid evolution of AI and uncertainties around that, I envision that a lot of these precautionary measures will also need to adapt with youth perspectives and what we are noticing throughout the coming and long term, many, many years in the future. And second, just to wrap up my thoughts on this, I do believe that the strategy's emphasis on sovereignty, one of their core pillars, is absolutely going to be a game changer in the long term for talent retention. Because if we are building this tech ecosystem locally with domestic equipment, also funding and computing power and storage facilities right here at home, Canada is going to be giving youth a genuine incentive to stay. So that means long term, we are creating and culturing this thriving environment where young innovators feel very supported to build their futures right here. And honestly, as somebody who's just starting out in the industry, that's a really, really exciting change to look forward to. So I can't wait to see where we progress from here.
Thanks so much, Deba. And I think you make an excellent point about the challenge of, retention and ensuring that the government sort of lives up to their promises in fostering that environment and keeping sort of Canadians in Canada, especially young Canadians. I'd love to flip it over to Raneem. Any thoughts on this question?
Yeah. So I have a few thoughts. So I would say reflecting on where the biggest impact will be felt, I think that the short term and long term are two things that could be quite separated. First of all, changes in hiring practices and career development strategies for young people are already going on, and so this will only accelerate and become faster in the future. To Deba's point, AI-driven tools are used in AI in resume screening, assessing job applicant skills and monitoring a lot of their performance. Young Canadian graduates who will join the labor market right now should be aware of this trend because it will help them to present themselves properly and to make questions about the AI in an interview and to monitor their performance as well. There's also an emerging expectation among employers to see a certain degree of AI literacy from new hires, including those who will not use those technologies directly in their job. So, regardless of whether it is mandatory, there is some expectation that there is a level of AI literacy. So the young Canadians who are familiar with those technologies and are able to think critically about them will have a huge advantage in those conversations. And that's an ability which can be developed now and does not require any additional expertise. However, the real opportunity, which is the most meaningful to mention, is in its long-term implications, and it has to do with who will determine the way artificial intelligence develops in the country. Today, the people who are making the decisions regarding AI development in Canada and in governmental agencies, regulatory authorities, big companies and organizations are mostly not from the generation who will be facing the consequences of those decisions for most of the time. And I believe that there will be a shift, especially among young Canadians who will develop the skills of policymaking, governance, and international relations and participate in those discussions in the future. We can see these long-term implications, and we do have something to do about it. So that's what the long-term opportunity suggested by the strategy is all about. And although it was not expressed so clearly there, it's not only about AI skills, it's also being a part of a generation who will determine this responsible AI development and safety in the country. And I'm sure this aim should be mentioned and pursued as well.
Amazing. And last but not least, Ismail, I'd love to hear from
No,
you.
I really appreciated the perspective that Diba and Ranin provided. Um, First of all, it is going to be really exciting to see what's going to happen after the rollout. I think whatever we will say today, it is not going to be exactly what is going to happen on the dot. It is just what we think will happen. I think that on the short term, after these rollouts, what is going to happen is we are going to see a lot of experimentation from young Canadian. Like young Canadian will be just experimenting, building small kind of AI tools, small AI agent, things just to that are just simple, right? But long term, those experimentation are going to convert into big solutions that companies are going to be using. The reason why I'm saying this is I'm thinking a little bit about the analogy of the boom of internet. AI is not new, but it is now that AI is booming, right? So when the internet started booming, what happens is people were just building simple websites. So, and then those websites, some were even building some website for researchers. But today, those websites became Google's. It became other solutions. So I think like after the rollout of this strategy, what is going to happen is as now young Canadians feel that we have tools and we have the infrastructure that we control, we are going to see a lot of experimentation. But long term, those experimentation are going to be great tools that our organization are going to be using.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Ismail. And now we're going to transition into the Q&A portion of the panel. We have a couple pre-submitted questions, as well as perhaps we're going to deal with a few of the Q&A that have been submitted. We have two pre-submitted questions. The first is something kind of interesting. Would love to hear a little bit more on how we can protect our indigenous knowledge within the context of AI, especially, be curious from a youth perspective, learning about these types of things in school as well as post-secondary. Are there ways we can incorporate some of that knowledge for young people as we go into a AI enhanced or enabled workforce? So I'm going to move over to Ismail. I'd love to hear if you have any thoughts on that.
First of all, AI is a tool. The question is, if I understood what you said, is how can AI could protect indigenous knowledge, right? So, huh, I think first of all, we should not treat indigenous knowledge as another AI dataset. It should be done with consent and under the leadership of indigenous communities and with indigenous peoples. So the reason why I'm saying this is I saw even this morning an article that maybe I can share in the group that was an article from the First Nation Technology Council. And they were talking about the sovereignty and the privacy and also the control. And I think it is right. The way that we should kind of think about AI protecting indigenous knowledge first will be start with the consent, and indigenous communities are free and they should decide what knowledge they want to digitize and what knowledge they don't want to digitize, right? And we should do it under their leadership and through the whole process, because when we talk about protecting knowledge, it is data, which means collection, which means storage, right? And I think through the whole process, we should have also like indigenous communities along the whole process if we really want to protect indigenous knowledge with AI. That's what I think.
Amazing. Really great points there, Ismail. And moving to another pre-submitted question on submitted by Francis. Many entry-level tasks are being automated with AI. How can young people and organizations prepare themselves for this? And I think that's something a lot of our participants are interested in. And I'd love to involve Sylvain in sort of that answer. So maybe a little bit of a dual response with Sylvain from ICTC side to hear a little bit about that. And I'd love to open the floor to maybe one of Diba, Raneem, or Ismail to make a note on that. So yeah, Sylvain, any thoughts on that?
Oh, thank you, Julian. I can provide some very brief, sort of perspective on this. Uh, well, the evidence so far is rather anecdotal at the moment. There seems to be some impact of AI in some very specific sector, but the economic research right now doesn't really identify a lot of this impact because at the end of the day, AI. It's early game in AI. It's a new technology. Firms are still experimenting how to use it, so the adoption level is slow. But about the news that a lot of the entry-level jobs are disappearing, something to consider if we bring a broader economic perspective on this is that we also have been experiencing an economic slowdown. This is due to geopolitical shift, investment uncertainties, and some firms may have used this as a convenient reason to cut costs. So it's something to consider. What the research is telling us, on the other hand, is that the more educated you are, and we heard some of this today, the more educated you are, the more likely you'll be using AI. There's also been an increase in alternative training to complement that more traditional education to better harness AI and to therefore make job seekers more competitive in the labor market. Also, AI by itself is complementary. I mean, it's a complementary skill like other skills. What we find in the research is that the complementarity, the human capital augmentation that AI may provide needs also other types of skills, critical thinking, communication. All those are complementary to AI. And at the same time, I mean, entry-level jobs are indeed important. They are important because they develop the tacit knowledge and the exchange of it within the workplace. And to eliminate these jobs imply, some maybe you lower the cost, but at the same time, there are some long-term consequences that we haven't fully measured. And one question is that how do firms develop their talent pipeline? If all that information and knowledge is accumulated within these first early years, in the workplace, if you eliminate this, what are the consequences, and how do you prepare the leaders, the future leaders of your enterprise? That's a question that hasn't been fully answered. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks so much, Sylvain. Any thoughts? Diba, Raneem?
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to add on to what Sylvain said. Thank you so much, Sylvain, for such useful insight. And I'm happy to add on to it as, someone who's in their early career and has been experiencing this. I know for myself, AI came throughout my last year to last semester of university was really a big focal point. It's just started progressing since then. And I would say and speak for a lot of maybe fresh graduates or people in their early career that even though the data is still catching up and nothing is confirmed just yet, what young Canadians are still seeing and hearing is shifting their career decisions, and that kind of perception really still has its own consequences. And while the anecdotal evidence may be ahead of the economic data, young people are experiencing this in real time before it shows up in research. And I think that's really important to acknowledge because it changes the courses of our lives, of our careers, based on what we perceive to be the future. And so for me, the framing is quite personal because the most useful thing's not been learning these specific AI tools, but also having to work alongside them and gaining that new skill set, knowing when to trust the input, knowing when to question that input, trying to understand what skills would be useful in the future, because we're in this gap where we're trying to bridge between what where we are right now with artificial intelligence and what is likely to be the necessary skills for a future career. And I would also advocate for the work and learning placements that the ICTC propels forward, because I believe that's still one of the most concrete ways you can build complementarity in practice, and you learn the contextual judgment that no course or tool can really teach you. So the gap that we're experiencing right now is that not everyone has equal access to those applied learning experiences. So that complementary argument holds if the training pathways are accessible, and I think that we need to be working towards that. And so those are just some of my thoughts, but I would love to open up the floor to Diba or Ismail if they want to add anything onto that. Thank you.
No, I think like Sylvain and you nail all the points. Maybe we'll pass on this because even if we try to say something, it will be also the same thing. I think Sylvain brought something that is very important. Sometimes we have something that is just a perception, and sometimes we have something that is a reality. So seeing Sylvain also talking about the data, I think we all will try to see what the data will see and then what the future will kind of shows up.
Amazing. I think we're bearing down on the end, but maybe we'll take a sort of combination sort of question that I'll put together for the panelists and just, a rapid fire answer from each of you, just maybe like one sentence. Um, like a lot of young people are kind of worried about, AI disrupting, the workforce. They're a little bit, worried. They're sort of they're not loving AI in some ways because it's taking away jobs and stuff like that. And a lot of educators are worried about for their students they want to inspire them and incentivize them, but the reality is things are changing. Do you have one quick message that you'd love to impart upon young people as a way to focus on shifting mindset, to think about the AI strategy positively, and to feel hopeful for the future when it comes to AI in the workforce. Yeah, I'd love to just whatever comes to your mind, just something that
Okay.
you're thinking of. Yeah, Ismail, do you want to start?
Yes. For example, we are in New Brunswick, and currently I see that in the parliament there is a lot of discussion about that. And I think for teachers, and also I built AI solutions for education. We need to know the difference between learning in AI and learning AI. It is two things that are different. So me as a teacher, maybe I'm not teaching maybe science, right? But my students at home are seeing their, their parent using AI. And every time they have a question, what do I do as a teacher? Right. So I think that in terms of shifts, we should think also about how to kind of be literate in terms of AI as a teacher so that we can support better our student. That's kind of what I think currently. I'm not saying that we should have AI tools for kids, but I'm just saying that our teachers should be better literate or better kind of good AI kind of users to kind of tell our kids what is right and what is not right to do, because our generation is the generation, our kids are going to be the next generation. They need to know what is about AI. They need to know how to use AI. And the most important thing is they need to know how to use it responsibly. So, as I said, we are not saying that in classrooms we need to teach AI, right? But we need to make our students know at least the good side and the bad side about AI. That's what I think.
Great. Raneem or Diba, quickly, a quick message.
Yeah, I can send a really quick message again because my background is somebody who's actually understanding how we build AI and what it is fundamentally. I think overall AI has a lot of misconceptions around it and it is very much treated as a black box. A lot of folks are just trying to use it without knowing what it is. And in order to resolve that apprehension for young students, but also people of all ages, generations, I think it's really important to understand what is it. It's essentially a lot of math and a lot of technology combined, and what are the distinct applications that it can be used for. And that might resolve some fears over the capabilities it has, whether it can take away jobs and opportunities, but also provide students and young folks a way to learn where they can capitalize off of the capabilities of AI instead. Hopefully that encapsulated a lot of thoughts.
Great. And Raneem, just for a quick last word on that.
Yeah, I think I'll just sum it up in one sentence and to echo what Ismail and Diba had mentioned before. I think not everything is as it seems. And to my previous point, I had this point where I was talking about how a lot of our decisions are being made upon what we see and hear and what we assume to be the future because we're kind of in this in-between phase. I do believe that a lot of it is also we have to also think about it from a corporate lens to really understand that a lot of these big companies are making money off of creating certain messaging around AI and pushing towards, let's say, the kind of fear mongering to some extent. And back to Diba's point, I think really understanding the applications of its AI, both its extraordinary ability, but also extraordinary limits as to what it can do in its own application, and understanding our own individual abilities is really crucial here. So I guess I'll just part with that final sentence.
Amazing. And thanks so much, everyone, for staying a little bit past our designated time. I just want to thank everybody for coming and attending. It was really a great privilege for us to get together and share some of our thoughts. If you'd like to learn more about the ICTC's sort of response to the AI strategy, feel free to check out their website. If you have more questions or would like to learn more about our initiative, feel free to reach out to ICTC. I'm sure there will be something sent in follow-up, but we are really glad that we were able to be here and hopefully we offered, something useful today. So thanks so much for joining and attending. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that discussion. Thank you to Julian, Diba, Ismail, Raneem for your perspective and insights today. And thank you for the attendees for your time and engagement. What we've learned today is that essentially the best defense is offense, to use a sport analogy. So in order to deal with the inevitability of AI, the best way is to take it on and to invest in your skills and to share that information with others. We will be following up with the presentation recording in the coming days. As you exit the webinar, you will see a short anonymous exit survey, which you can use to submit feedback. Your feedback is really valuable to us, and it will be used to improve future sessions. So I wish everybody a great rest of the week, and thank you, everyone, particularly to our ambassadors. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.